Look at you! Oh my Lord, on a summer Friday night. And we have major overflow for Senator Warren. I am so proud of you. You keep me sane. When I watch CNN and MSNBC every night, at least I know where I live. And then I'm safe to go to sleep until tomorrow. I'm Corey Atkins. I'm the state representative from Concord. I also happen to be the luckiest state representative because I'm from Concord. And it was our forefathers and mothers who stood at that bridge, rowdy bunch that they were, drunk in the morning, heaven forbid, that started a revolution that continues to this day. And that's why we're not going to let our democracy be threatened by anyone or anything. I just want to point out a couple of my colleagues that are here joining us tonight. One is Jay Kaufman, who's a representative from Lexington. Next to him is Carmine Gentile, who's a representative from Sudbury. And right up front is Barbara L'Italian, who's a state senator. She's also a hero in our household because of her work on autism, and she is running for Nikki Tsongas' seat. Barbara L'Italian. You will hear from our good state senator, Michael Barrett, because he's going to have the luxury of introducing Senator Warren. But it's my job, I have to be the cop tonight. Look at me, Corey the cop. That's not usually my role. Did everybody who wants to ask a question, get a number? No? All right, I need people from Senator Warren. Hold your hand up if you didn't get a number. So I need people from Senator Warren's office handing out numbers to people who want to ask a question. Okay, because this is how it's going to proceed. The senator's going to talk for a while, and when we go to question and answers, you get to see me again. And we're going to have a basket. And in the basket is a corresponding number. So I pull 3 numbers, and we ask the people of the numbers for whom I poll to go to the microphone. And there's a mic here, a mic there, one way up there, and one way up there. I should get credit for that because I don't have my glasses on. And you'll get your questions. What we ask is that you limit yourself to one question so that people so we can answer as many as possible. The other thing is, if you didn't get a chance to, are people handing out numbers, Kate? Because I see hands still up. Okay, you can put your hands down. Let me know when they're bringing them in, and we'll tell them to put their hands back up, so they don't have to. Okay, all right. So rest. The numbers are coming. If you don't get a question at the end of the evening, if you don't get to have your question answered, come on up stage. Have you got your cell phone so we can get pictures with the senator? You want to do that? Want to have some fun? Okay. I'm done playing cop. You got it? We're going to have numbers. I pull the corresponding numbers, call them, 3 or 4 of them come up to whatever mic is the most convenient. Ask your question. No big, long narrative, please. And we go from there, okay? Right now, I am not only the luckiest state representative, but I am the proudest. Thank you all for coming out tonight. You are terrific. God bless.
Warm welcome to everyone here and to everyone in the overflow. I'm State Senator Mike Barrett and delighted to be here with you all. A special shout out to the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee and Superintendent Lori Hunter for hosting us in this gorgeous room. And to Mike Lawson, member of the Concord Board of Selectmen, who helped us work with the school committee to procure the space. We're very grateful to him and to the entire Board of Selectmen for having us all, even us out-of-towners. Just one very brief public service announcement. It does have to do with the bill that some of you see mentioned in the leaflet that you were given. Isn't it about time that the state of Massachusetts passed a law requiring that if you're going to run for president, you disclose potential conflicts of interest and file your income tax? Wednesday, September 6th, 1 o'clock, we need a few of you folks at the State House, actually quite a few of you, because we've got to demonstrate that there's enormous grassroots determination to see Massachusetts do this first. And with that, now to the really important matter at hand. Going down to Washington in this day and age has got to be really tough. Once you get there, standing for the right stuff, well, if you come from Massachusetts, we kind of expect that. But standing for the right stuff with real passion and world-class smarts and moral clarity and real wit and indignation and anger when it's called for, and with a gut feeling born of your own life experience about what confronts blue-collar and white-collar people in this economy. These talents and instincts are very hard to come by. They don't sit in the registration packet when you sign up to run for office, and yet they absolutely define the senior senator from Massachusetts. Thank you, Elizabeth, for putting the fun back into fighting the good fight, for keeping us optimistic, and thank you for making this president look so low energy. I give you Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Woo! What a group. This is fabulous. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. It is so good to be here. I want to start by thanking Senator Mike for getting out here. Mike Barrett, thank you very much for the introduction. So here it is. It is a beautiful summer, late afternoon out there. We're in a beautiful area. There are about 1 million gorgeous things you could be doing outside. And you all came inside to talk about policy. I love being from Massachusetts. Yes! Thank you. So here's what we're going to do tonight. I thought I'd talk for a few minutes, if that is humanly possible. I get wound up on some of this stuff, but I'll do my best. I'll talk for a few minutes, and then we're going to take just as many questions as time permits, and we're going to have Representative Corey Atkins is going to come out and be my moderator in a few minutes. Corey? And, and we'll take as many questions as we can. And then at the end, if anybody wants to stay and do a picture, we'll just line up and come down here and we'll do selfies, we'll dance, whatever you guys want to do. We'll have some fun. So I'll talk about whatever you all want to talk about, whatever your questions are. I just want to start by saying there's just so much. I mean, there really is. You know, can you believe that Donald Trump has been president for 7 months? It's like dog years or something. It really does. I'm thinking, God, is this almost over? But it's not yet. And there are a lot of things just in the past few weeks. Afghanistan, Charlottesville, North Korea. But there's one thing I do want to talk about, just make sure that I carve out a little time to talk about. And that's something that touches every one of us. And it's health care. So I just want to remind everybody where we were, because I think this is really important about health care. It's also important about understanding what's happening in America right now. The House of Representatives, with Republicans in the majority, voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, I think it's 64 times, okay, over the past few years. So, like, I called one of my friends over in the House of Representatives one day. I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, we're just over here repealing Obamacare. That's all we do. That's what we do. We just vote on it every now and again, like it hadn't been enough when you'd voted 20 times to repeal it. Let's vote another 20 and then another 20 past that. House of Representatives, they are ready to go. Let's repeal the Affordable Care Act. Senate had voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. President Obama had had to veto that, or it would have happened earlier. And Donald Trump, of course, said, I think famously said multiple times on day one, that he would repeal the Affordable Care Act. And here's the deal. Day one came and went, and we still have the Affordable Care Act. Now, it's important to remember why that happened. Because we didn't have enough votes in the House to stop him. We didn't have enough votes in the Senate to stop him. So how did it happen? Well, in November, shortly after the election, there were a lot of us who looked around and said, oh my gosh, we know they're coming for it. We know they're coming for America's health care. What can we do? And so we started talking about it can't just be repeal, and then we're all standing out there with our begging bowls hoping that we can get a little more health care coverage. Instead, we started talking about repeal and replace. You've got to repeal and replace. And even Donald Trump picked that up before he was sworn. He said, yeah, you got to repeal and replace. That sounds right. And good. And once that happened, it forced the Republicans to back up and say, well, here's what we have in mind. Here's our vision for what health care looks like in America. And that got the conversation going. You may remember, we spent about a month where it was headlines day after day after day talking about people with pre-existing conditions. And wait a minute, what do you mean? You're talking about, you're going to make sure that people with pre-existing conditions are still covered, right? Because my husband has high blood pressure, or my daughter had a diagnosis of cancer, and that will always be a pre-existing condition. In fact, much of America, many American families are already touched by pre-existing conditions. And so, yeah, we got to make sure that that's covered. And that led us into another conversation about health care and another conversation about health care until we got back to Congressional Budget Office scores. And that was the moment when the Republicans really had to reveal their vision of health care for America. And the basic vision was knock 25 million people off their health care coverage, force up the cost of health insurance for millions and millions more. And why? In order to produce tax breaks for a handful of millionaires, billionaires, and giant corporations. That was their vision of health care. And that gave us something to aim at and to fight back. So here's how I look at this now. Anybody in this room know a child who has complex medical needs? needs a therapist, needs someone to come by, some kids who need breathing tubes, born with serious problems, kids who spend a long time in the neonatal intensive care unit. Yeah, a lot of us know those folks. Some of us know people who have to use wheelchairs. Anybody in here? Know someone like that? Someone who needs someone to drop by, maybe for 2 hours a day to be able to help with personal care so they can still live at home. Some so that they can be able to go to work. Anybody know anyone who's in a nursing home? Yeah. Well, let me tell you, what we've just done is we've identified the face of Medicaid in America, because that is who gets Medicaid in America. It is an amazing promise that we made to each other. We said, you know, we don't know who has the next baby who runs up $2 million in the neonatal intensive care unit before they're even a week old. We don't know who among us might need to use a wheelchair, might need some personal services care to be able to stay at home. We don't know who among us might have a Nana who lives longer than the amount of money she was able to save, and now is in a nursing home and counts on Medicaid, as 2 out of every 3 people in nursing homes do, counts on Medicaid to help pay that bill so that she gets the care that she needs. We have said to each other as Americans that that's our promise. We don't know who it is it's going to hit, but all of us are going to pitch in a little. So if it happens to our families, if it happens to our neighbors, if it happens to people we love, and even if it doesn't, if it just happens to our fellow Americans, we're going to make sure that everybody gets some basic coverage in this country. That's the promise we made. And that's the promise that the Republicans have tried to repeal. That's the part they've tried to knock back. They've tried one after another. And I got to tell you, we got in this fight. I stood in the United States Senate. I stood and I held on to my desk that was Ted Kennedy's desk. Yep. I held on to that desk while I watched the votes on what was going to happen to health care in America. And I watched as Susan Collins voted no, as Lisa Murkowski voted no, as John McCain voted no. Yeah. And by one vote, 25 million Americans held on to their health care. By one vote. We held on to a Medicaid system that is still functional. We held on to trying to help bring down the cost of health care coverage for everyone. But here's the deal. I want you to understand. The way we won that vote is not because of the leadership in the Senate. It's because of what changed across America. It's because of grassroots action in America. So let me ask, anybody in here send an email? Keep your hands up. Anybody in here make a phone call? Anybody in here tweet? Anybody in here do a post? Anybody in here show up for a rally? Anybody protest march? Did I get all of you in this? Because you are the ones who saved health care in America. You're the ones. So I wanted to be here tonight in Concord to say exactly 2 words to you, and that is thank you. Thank you. That's the difference we can make together. Thank you. So look, we got to stop. We got to celebrate when we win, right? That's how you get your batteries recharged. But boy, don't kid yourself. They're coming back. They're already trying to put together other bills, other ways to try to roll back health care. So we're going to be down in Washington fighting this again in just a couple of weeks. And that means we're not one and done on this. It means we really do have to change democracy. We've started. We made our voices heard. We made it heard on health care. We've made our voices heard. But we can't quit. We got to make them heard every single day. And that's why I wanted to be here with you tonight. So with that, how about if we do this? I'm going to ask Corey to come on out. Corey's going to be our moderator. Nothing moderate about her, but she's going to be our moderator. Come on, Representative Atkins. Good to see you. Good to see you, dear. And she's going to run the show. She's going to get people down to ask questions, and then my job is going to be to answer the questions as best I can. Okay.
Let's start. Number 183.
183. Okay.
Okay, come on, boys and
Okay, that's all
girls.
right. Keep going.
Number 279.
We've got the microphones. Where are the microphones? Right here?
Okay.
Oh, here we go. We
All
got
right.
somebody. And who's the third one, just so we'll get them started?
Number 257.
257.
Have we got number 257?
They may be in the other room. Did we hand them out to people in the other room?
I don't know.
Good.
They kept me backstage.
Okay. They could be. If we hit number 1100, we'll know it's somebody in
Okay.
one of the other rooms. You know there's an overflow. You guys got the seats. And you know
Number
there's an overflow to the
225.
overflow. Okay.
Number
got anybody?
193. Are you 193? Great.
Have we got somebody? I
Okay.
feel a little lonely up here, guys.
All right.
Are you 193?
I'm the 183, the first one.
Whoa, 183. All right.
Are you going to hold on to it? Okay.
Have we got, let's just get a couple more who are heading our way. You want to read a couple
Okay.
more numbers, Corey?
Number 181.
Are those all stuck together? They all sound like they're coming from the same place.
They're all, I'm trying to pick different colors.
Yeah, I'm just saying, statistically speaking, that shouldn't be happening, right?
Number 241.
You can always tell a numbers nerd.
241? Why do I feel like I'm in a
Okay, we
bingo
got
game?
someone
Are you
here.
241? No?
Okay.
You don't have to hide. I won't pick on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll cold call soon. Okay. All right, who have we got?
All right. How many do we have to speak? 1, 2, 3, 4. Why don't you go
Great.
and
Let's get started.
okay, and I'll line up some numbers for next.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
It's so nice to be here and meet you, and
I'm
thank
so
you for
glad
coming.
you're here. Tell me your name.
Gail.
Gail. Hi,
Erdis.
Gail.
Hi.
Like your fashion choice.
Thank you. And
Okay.
so I'm here. I'm very active in Moms Demand Action for
Yay!
Gun Sense in America. And as you probably know, there's the open carry reciprocity bill that's coming up. And I know that I already know pretty much how you feel about gun sense bills. But can you just give a little snippet into what's happening with the NRA and what's happening as far as that goes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gail, and thanks for pushing on this issue. The NRA is holding Washington hostage. That's what's happening. And so we thought, right after Newtown, that maybe we could get some sensible, just modest, sensible gun legislation in place, and the NRA beat it back. Then, last year, we went at a different angle. You all know the no-fly lists, people who are on the no-fly list because they're regarded as sufficient threats to the security of the United States that they're not permitted to get on airplanes. We tried on the Democratic side. We said, how about if we do no-fly, no-buy, that you can't buy a gun if you're on the no-fly list. And the NRA beat that back. And what's so frustrating about this is just some sensible control, sensible about registration, sensible about who it is who has access to buy guns. How about if we try to keep them out of the hands of people who are identified as potential terrorists? And when you mention there are states, as many of you know, that permit open carry. And at least one part of gun safety has been to let states like Massachusetts decide how in Massachusetts we want to deal with guns, that we have our own rules. Now, let's be blunt. There's only so much we can do in Massachusetts because the borders are open. Other states, people can buy guns in other states and bring them back into Massachusetts. They carry them across the border. There's nobody who inspects. But the idea on this one is that if someone has a license to carry a weapon openly in another state that permits that, that a state like Massachusetts would be forced to let that person do the same thing here in Massachusetts. And we wouldn't have any say over our own safety, over the safety of our children. That just seems fundamentally wrong to me. So this is where the NRA is pushing, and they've got a lot of Republicans going along with them in that direction. And what you rightly identified, Gail, is going to be one more fight that we're going to have to call on everyone in this room to get back in on. Because this is one of those where if you really do believe in democracy, if you really do believe that what the majority of people want, we'd have some sensible gun legislation in this country. And that's one more example of how we got to fight to take Washington back so it's not working for special interests, but instead it's working for the people. So thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you for your, thank you, thank you. You bet. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Tell me your name.
My name is Myra.
Hi,
I'm
Myra.
from Bedford. I had heart surgery about 5 years ago.
You're
and-
looking good.
Well, I'm looking good because my heart surgeon is a transgender.
All right.
All right.
And I'm here basically on account of her, for her kindness, for her skill. And my question is, how can we fight the transgender ban in the military that Trump is trying to put forth?
Now, let me start here. Anybody who wants to serve in our military, who is willing to volunteer, who is willing to put his or her life on the line, and who is otherwise qualified, is someone that we want to say to, thank you, please do. And that's it. The way I want to start framing this one is around patriotism. We talk about how grateful we are to the people who serve in the military. Well, if we are truly grateful, let's show it by saying we stand up for everyone who wants to serve in the military. That's what an act of patriotism is all about. So thank you.
What
We're going to do it, Myra.
specifically can we do?
So part of, I know this is frustrating, we're limited in what we can do on our site, but this is part of the point that I'm going to make probably 52 bazillion times this evening. And that is, we do make our voices heard, and it matters. Mm-hmm. It makes a difference. And it's when we do it publicly, just so you know, I've talked to our generals about this. I've talked to those who recruit about this. We've got a lot of people who have spoken up publicly and bravely about it. I think this is one of those where we just need to make clear what our values are, what the values of patriotism are all about, and that certainly includes transgender people who want to serve in the military. Thank you. Thank you, Myra. Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth. I'm Edie.
Hi, Edie.
I'm from Waltham.
All right, good to see you, Edie. Oh, I think you have some supporters here. Okay.
I would like to say that I love you.
Oh, what a nice thing to say.
And I think you have more guts than anyone in Congress. And there's a lot of people that feel that way, too.
Thank you, Edie. Thank you. Thank you, Edie.
My issue is a former elections worker in North Carolina was indicted Monday by the Durham County Grand Jury for mishandling provisional ballots resulting during the elections of 2016. He was convicted and charged with a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but this is the second election we've lost. And something needs to be done to secure our voting ballots and to make sure that every one of our votes count.
Yes, yes, you are exactly right on this, Edie. So let me point out something we're trying to do on this, because you are right. You are right. And the current state of our whole electoral process is deeply worrisome. We talk about this now. I'm now in the Senate Armed Services Committee, and we talk about this now as a national security issue. I've raised it in hearings. Other people have raised it in hearings. We've also raised it in secure briefings that are not public. Because let's just keep in mind what we know happened in 2016. We know, there's no ambiguity about this. Our intelligence organizations, all of them, have said that the Russians hacked in to American systems in order to try to influence the outcome of the 2016 election. We know this.
Okay.
And we also know that our systems are vulnerable.
Definitely.
Many of them are working on old systems. Cybersecurity at best is uneven in different places. And think about what the Russians were trying to do. If they can finagle our elections, it's not just a question of do they get someone in that they like better. It's that they undermine our confidence in the whole notion of a democracy. That it's all up for grabs now. No confidence in any part of your government if you're not sure that everybody's ballot got counted. And so I believe the urgency of getting on top of this before we hit the 2018 election, much less the 2020 election, is intense right now. We need to be assessing where the risks are, and we need to be making changes. But to do that, we've got to have bipartisan support in Washington. This should not be a partisan issue. It should be an issue that all of us care about, the integrity of our electoral system. The only way that's going to happen, though, is if we keep hitting this point. And every time we see that there's been a breach in the system is to do just what you did, Edie. Stand up, talk about it, read about it, post about it, to get more people engaged. I promise you this. I will work both in a big public way and back behind the scenes to do everything I can to get us to assess the risk, identify the risks, and start making changes as quickly as possible. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our children to make sure that in the election of 2018, every single ballot gets counted. So thank you, Edie. Thank you on that.
Thank you, Senator. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay. Hi, Senator Warren. My name's Cynthia Katz. I live in West Concord, and I am so grateful you're our senator.
Oh, what a nice thing to say,
feel it.
Cynthia.
So I'm wondering if you can talk sort of high altitude, big picture about the Democratic vision moving forward so that we aren't just playing defense, but we are creating, but that progressives are really putting forth a vision and a leadership that people can wrap their minds around.
Okay, all right. Now, Cynthia is not a plant. We have not met before. But this
True.
is like one of my most favorite
I was
things.
outside in the overflow.
All right,
And I
and
know.
made it in. All right, all right. A woman who had to fight to get down to this floor. Thank you, Cynthia. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't have a lot of fancy charts up here, but I actually want to, if I can for a minute, I want to take a longer approach to this answer. And when I would do things like charts, like graphs, I'll just dance them. That's a rising GDP, falling GDP, okay? We can do this, right? We'll just all do this together. Okay, so I'm gonna tell a really quick story. It starts in the 1790s. Settle in. Come on, you guys are from Concord. You know, I'm not in one of those Johnny-come-lately places. So, 1790, we have first big financial crash of the new republic. And basically, it runs on about a 20-year cycle. And what the 20-year cycle looks like is things start getting pretty good, then they get a little better, then they get a little better, then they get great, and then they all explode. And the economy falls off a cliff. And when it falls, it takes down the speculators, but you wouldn't be surprised to learn it also takes down the small shopkeepers, and it takes down the farmers, and it takes down employees. It takes down a lot of people, and a lot of people who didn't have the ability to withstand. So it happened about every 20 years, and pretty much smart people of the time said, it's natural. There's just, if you want to have a market economy, a free market economy, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to boom and bust roughly about every 20 years. You know, kind of like gravity. You know, the apple, you drop it, it falls to the ground. And so the question then was, what happens when the big one hits, as it did in 1930? So we hit the big crash then, and Franklin Roosevelt said something audacious. We can do better. We can do better. And he picked up two tools. The first tool, cover the children's ears so they don't hear this word, regulation. It's true. He said, I know what we could do. We could make it safe to put money in banks. That was FDIC insurance. Yep. We could put a cop on Wall Street. That was the SEC. We could separate savings account, checking account banking from high-risk speculative Wall Street investment banking. That was Glass-Steagall. And we can start enforcing the antitrust laws a lot more than they were being enforced. They've been passed a generation earlier, but not really enforced at this time. And he said, we can use regulation, and what we can use regulation for, listen to what those regulations were, to just kind of level the playing field. Just a cop on the beat, right? Just level the playing field a little bit. So you don't wipe out the small businesses. So the game is not how many people can you cheat. That was number one. And number two, progressive taxation. And the idea was, the more you made, the more you paid in taxes, but here was the heart of it. You take that money from the taxes and you invest it in helping build a future for every American. And where did we invest that money? 1935 to, let's say, about 1980. We invested it principally in three things. We invested it in education. We invested it in a GI Bill. A grateful nation said to returning soldiers, this is how we want to say thank you, give you an opportunity for an education. We invested it in K-12. We invested it in state schools. We invested it in subsidized student loans. We invested it because we believed that if our children were better educated, they would have more opportunities in this world. The second thing we invested in is we invested in infrastructure. In roads, in bridges, in power. Power is a great story. In 1930s, 90% of people who lived in urban areas had electricity because it made sense for private power companies to do, or municipalities to come together and do them. Only 10% of people who lived in rural areas had electricity. So what did we do as a country? We invested in making sure that everybody had electricity. Because we said you can't be part of a 20th century economy if you don't have electricity. Nobody's going to build a business where there's no electricity. They're not going to do it. And so all of us, even people who lived in places that already had electricity, pitched in our nickels, and we made sure that all of America could participate in a 21st century economy. We built an interstate highway system so that businesses could move their goods and services, right, all throughout this economy. We dredged harbors so we could ship things overseas. We all made those investments in infrastructure. Why? So that we could build a more vibrant economy for everyone, produce good jobs for everyone, so small businesses would have a chance to grow and flourish. And the third thing we did, this one is truly remarkable. We invested in research, in scientific research, and medical research, and materials research, and engineering research, and behavioral research. We didn't know what it was going to produce, but we were pretty sure that if we built a giant pipeline of ideas, that our children and our grandchildren would be able to do things we hadn't even yet dreamed of. And here's the deal. It worked. It worked. 1935 to 1980, now I'm going to have to dance, GDP, right? GDP just kept going up. But here's the heart of it. GDP went up. The 90% of America, everybody outside the top 10%, the 90% of America got 70% of all new income growth in this country. Think about that. That was a wonderful, amazing thing. And it was everybody. It was the upper middle class, the middle class, the working poor, and the poor poor. Everybody got more. Now, it wasn't perfect. I don't kid myself. Those were years when women were locked firmly out of jobs, LGBTQ locked firmly in the closet, African Americans, Latinos discriminated against. But the one place we have some pretty good data is the black-white wealth gap. It's been there ever since we started measuring. We started measuring it in the 1940s as we started collecting good data on this. Black-white wealth gap. When we hit, it's always was there. When we hit 1965, the civil rights movement, think about what the civil rights movement was. The investment in education, opening up infrastructure, right? When we did this, 1965 to 1980, 15 years, the black-white wealth gap shrunk by 30%. We weren't perfect, but we were on a good road. And then 1980 hit. And that's about the place to measure this. Ronald Reagan, trickle-down economics. And what were the two parts of trickle-down economics? Deregulation, which is another way to say, just turn them loose, right? What could possibly go wrong, right? And they did it over time, 1980 to about 2016, just kept after it, deregulate, deregulate, deregulate. And the second part, cut taxes for those at the top. And when you cut taxes for those at the top, you know what happened. We shrunk up our investments in education, in infrastructure, and in basic research. And here's the deal. It worked. So GDP keeps going right on up. As a country, we kept getting wealthier. 1935 to 1980, we kept getting wealthier. 1980 to 2016, we kept getting wealthier. There's some bumps, but basically that's the line. But here's the difference. The 90% of America, part that got 70% of all new income growth back in the first time period, the 90% of America, how much of the new income growth did they get? From 1980 to 2016, the answer is 0. 100% of new income growth in this country since 1980 has gone to the top 10%. And that is the heart of the story. America was once a country that worked for the people. Not perfectly, but we knew we were there for opportunity. That was our goal. That was our target. America has become a country that works for the rich and the powerful, and it leaves everyone else behind. You want to understand what it means to me to be a progressive in America? It means fighting to take back our government so we can build an America that works for people, not one that just works for those at the top. That's the heart of it. That's it. Yeah. So I get it. It's a little long to fit on a bumper sticker. But it is the heart of it. And it really means, to me, that the way we explain what we're all about is it is about our values. And it is about what we think government is for. If you really think government is for sale, it's for whoever can go to Washington and hire the most lobbyists and hire the most lawyers and influence the most politicians, right? Then America's working for you right now. But if you actually believe that the role of government is to be the servant of the people, the role of government is our chance to level the playing field, to say that everybody gets a shot. That, yeah, big businesses are out there, produce your jobs, but small businesses get a chance too. And workers get a chance to be heard too. If you believe that, if you believe that we make investments in tomorrow and in the next day, by investing in our kids' education, by investing in making it sensible to do good jobs here in America, build infrastructure here in America, to invest in research, so there really will be answers to the horrible problems that are facing us right now, climate problems. If you believe those things, you're a progressive, and I like it. So, good for you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Okay, I promise I will answer the next one more quickly. Okay.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name's Karen, and I'm from Rosendale.
Hi, Karen.
Hello, nice to see you. I've
Nice
seen you
to
a few
see you.
times.
Welcome from
My
Rosendale.
question is not so much about a plan, but leadership. I watch a lot of news, and the question that annoys me the most when Democrats are being interviewed is, who do you think is the leader of the Democratic Party?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I hear you.
You are.
Because to me, it's not one person in Washington, it's the resistance. And specifically, groups like Flip the House, the little lobbyists, who are my new favorites.
Yes.
Look them up if you don't know who they are.
Wait, hold on one second. Does everybody know who the littlest lobbyists are?
No.
Oh.
They saved healthcare.
They saved healthcare. They really did. They showed up on Capitol Hill. You let me steal your thunder for
Go
just
for
1
it.
minute. The Little Lobbyists is an organization that's put together by some moms of children with complex medical needs. And in the hot, desperate days of July, as we were fighting over health care, the moms brought the littlest lobbyists in their strollers, sometimes bringing along their oxygen tanks, bringing all of the special equipment that they need, and just went in to talk to senators one at a time and said, when you're thinking about voting to take away Medicaid from millions of Americans, keep in mind this little face, because that's who you're taking it away from. The little lobbyists have helped change America, so let's give them a round. Anybody in here do any little lobbyists?
Look 'em
They
up.
were fabulous.
So my question is, how can the resistance, and in particular groups like Indivisible, who are training people how to be part of the resistance, how can they connect better with people in Washington so that we can take all of this energy we have in the streets? And I marched from Roxbury on Saturday to the Common, and it was pretty amazing. So I want to take that energy and bring it to Washington.
So it's a great question, and the answer is we're learning it, right? No, I mean this. We're having to teach it to ourselves, and I get it when people feel frustrated. We want it to happen right now, this minute. I want to know exactly what the path is, but we've never had anything like this in America before. We've never needed anything like this in America before. It's true. And so let me just give a couple of pieces, okay, on how we might want to think about this. You're already clearly there, but for anybody who's not, the first one I say is join an organization. And if you already belong to an organization, join two. You know, there's nothing, you could even do three. The reason is because the organizations help us get focused on where the fights are right now. where the opportunities are, where the risks are. They help make sure we've got the information we need. So we get lined up, and it helps us be as effective as possible. It also helps us keep each other going, and I think that's a really important part of this. So that's part one. Part two is we got to recruit. We cannot just talk to each other. We can't just talk to people who agree with us. We got to talk about our issues. We got to find nice ways to talk about them, but we've got to talk about our issues with our uncle who disagrees with us, with our neighbor who snarls, okay? With the person standing in front of you in line at the grocery store, pumping gas next to you. We've got to reach out, not in a creepy way. But we do. And you say, how do I do that? Are you kidding? You know, and the answer is pick your issue. Pick the thing that really matters to you. Student loan debt, right? Climate change. Pick the thing that healthcare. Pick the thing that matters to you. Put it in a personal context. Find a way to talk about it that at least introduces it without being threatening, and try. And maybe you'll be turned down. Someone will turn away from you. Maybe somebody will be angry. But you know, that's what it's going to take. It's not going to take just us talking to each other. It's going to take us reaching out and talking to others. And I want to say this particularly to folks in Massachusetts. We got to talk to people in other states. We got a great delegation here in Massachusetts. We really do. We're on the front lines. I have a great partner in Ed Markey. He is fabulous. Yes. Catherine Keller, right? Catherine's fabulous. We have wonderful people doing our best in Washington. But every single person in here has family that doesn't live in Massachusetts, has friends from school who don't live in Massachusetts. Every person in here belongs to an organization or multiple organizations that are spread across the country. We've got to reach out and bring more people into this conversation. So that's part two for me. And part three for me is make a commitment. A commitment to do one thing every day. Maybe it's send an email. Maybe it's post something. Maybe it's to forward something. Maybe it's to make a phone call. Maybe it's to reach out and talk to somebody new. But one thing. And the reason for that is the commitment not only helps us change the rest of America, it changes us. We aren't in this fight because it's easy. We aren't in this fight because it's fashionable. We aren't in this fight because it fits right now in our schedule. We are in this fight because the country we love is truly on the line. It is not clear that democracy will be able to survive what's going on in Washington right now. And I guarantee you this, my children and grandchildren will not ask, what did you do when it all started to slip away? My answer is, I made a commitment and I live by that commitment every day, and I hope you will too. So thank you. Thank you. You bet. Thank you. Corey.
Why don't we take a question from this mic?
All right.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Hale. I live in Waltham.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi. I'm reading your book, A Fighting Chance, which is excellent, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Say that again.
Excellent, excellent. Very solid, very solid.
Subtle.
Yeah, right. You're reading it to me, by the way.
Oh,
I'm
you're
listening
doing
to
the
that.
audio
Yeah,
version?
and it's
Yep.
great.
Good.
So, in the book, you
can
talk a lot
set me
about...
on high speed. You can imagine what that's like.
No, I like it at regular
okay.
talking rate.
Okay.
So, in the book, you talk about how it's not just the Republicans, the conservatives have taken away so much of what was gained during the, up until 1980, let's say. And you've gone over some of that now, and you go over a lot of it in the book, and it's very clear, very cogent. And the question I have is this. You then say, and they discovered that they didn't have to pay a price for that.
Yeah.
And the question is, Why not?
So it's the right question. And the answer is because they told a story that's a lie. Here's the fundamental, and I make this point in the book and kind of flesh it out in This Fight Is Our Fight, where I talk about that what Republicans started pushing in the 1980s, early 1980s, is that the enemy is not those who get out and cheat, who build a business model around defrauding people. It's not the people who stole. No. It's the government. And look, there's easy pickings sometimes. Government gets things wrong. You bet it does. There are times when it is inefficient. There are times when it heads in the wrong direction. But Ronald Reagan said it when his famous line was, what are the 9 worst words in the English language? I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. Those are not the worst words in the English language. I mean, Donald Trump has like doubled down on that how many times? But think about that. Because if you can make government the enemy, something separate from the people, if you can make government the enemy, then it becomes really easy to deregulate for your friends, right? To deregulate for those who can afford, the lobbyists, the lawyers, to make government work. When I say deregulate, that's only part of it. To hand out the contracts, to make sure that the benefits, to make sure that the playing field is tilted so it works for the rich and the powerful. And so the way I see this is that we've got to fight back on that. Government is not some distant thing. Government's us. It's what we choose. It's who we are. When you see government make a mistake, when you think it's wrong, the answer is not throw up your hands and say, well, what do you expect? It's the government. No, the answer is how can I make that better? And it's how can I hold people accountable? I believe in accountability in government. I believe in a government that responds to the people. And so I think that's been the central move for 40 years now, basically. And that is to say to people across this country, your life stinks. You can't make it. You're working your behind off. You're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Here's the answer. It's government's fault. It's all those people in Washington who are just taking your taxes, who are just cheating you, who are just, it's waste, fraud, and abuse, which is evidently just one word, right? That's synonymous with government. That's what the problem is. No, that's not what the problem is. The problem is that people don't own the government anymore. It's owned by the moneyed interests. Now, that's the bad news. Okay, that's the bad news. The bad news is that the other side has all the advantages that money and power bring. They can coordinate. Look at the Koch brothers. I mean, they can drop $1 bazillion in campaigns. They can, I tell the stories in there about forcing Republicans to toe the line, and boy, and the Republicans do. They can do that because they've got the advantage of money, and money now flows through Washington like a river. They've got that. That's their advantage. But you know what? There's a whole lot more of us than there is of them. If we make democracy work, we can beat them every time. And that's what this is about. Come on, you've got to sound more enthusiastic about it than that. We've got to do it. Yes. Yeah. Good one. Good one. All right. What do we got, Corey?
We have, do we have gentlemen waiting here?
All right.
There's a couple on top there.
And a couple.
Oh.
Whoa.
Oh, let's go on. Can we wait just 2 more? 2 more questions. Up there will be one, and down here, because I called on you before, okay? So up in the corner, gentlemen.
Hi, Senator Warren. You're the best senator ever. Thanks for coming.
Oh.
You're the best.
Hey. So done.
Make me proud to be from Massachusetts.
Did you say Nikki?
What?
Name? What was
Oh,
your
my name is Daniel.
Daniel.
From Lexington.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Nice
All right.
to meet
Nice
you.
to see you, Daniel.
So my question real quick is about Charlottesville.
Yeah.
And One thing that I noticed after the Charlottesville attack was some big companies such as Google and other music hosting websites that have taken off horrible websites like for the alt-right and things that promote hateful ideologies. And even, for example, Spotify took down a lot of music with racism in it. And I wonder what you feel that the government or the private sector's place is in trying to keep such hateful symbols such as the Nazis or swastikas off our streets, and how you balance that with concerns about keeping free speech and things like that.
Okay, it's a great question. Thank you. So can we just kind of start with some first principles on this, and then we'll get into more detail. People who march with Nazis and white supremacists are not nice people. Can we just start there? You think? And yeah, I believe in free speech. I believe in free speech. I think that people ought to have an opportunity to say what they want to say. But I also think that the rest of us have a right to hold people accountable for their words. We have a right to be able to push back. That's what it means to have a conversation. And that's what it means for me in a democracy, that the rest of us who want to make our voices heard get a chance to do that. You know, I worry where we are right now, that we have created opportunities for forms not just of hatefulness, but to incite violence. We have permitted that to expand and move now through this country in a way that wasn't there a few years back. And part of it is because of technological change, right? That people can find each other and unite and make themselves heard and make themselves visible online. But part of it is also what's happened to the leadership in this country. You know, we talked a few minutes ago about elections, and the integrity of our electoral system should not be a partisan issue. It shouldn't be that Democrats believe that our electoral system should be safe and Republicans believe it should be subject to being hacked by inside or outside forces. I feel the same way about the ugly hatefulness that has reared its head in this country over the past year and a half. I'm no longer in the Democrat versus Republican on this. For me, the place where we draw the line is either you stand with hateful people who don't believe that all of us were created equal and that we all should have the same kinds of opportunities in this country. Either you stand with those people or you stand with the rest of America. And right now, Donald Trump is on the wrong side of that division. And we just can't do this. We can't do this. Not anymore. We've got to call him out on this. We got one more down here?
Yep, this will be the last question,
We have one
and
more?
it's from this gentleman right over here.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes, I'm Graham Atkin from Lincoln.
Graham?
Graham.
Graham?
Graham.
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 Graham. Graham.
Graham,
From Lincoln.
from Lincoln.
Hey,
Go Graham. Okay,
thank you for coming this evening.
Oh,
A great joy to see you.
You
You're
bet.
absolutely excellent.
it's good to see you.
I have a question concerning women's rights.
Okay.
And the healthcare issues, all the healthcare issues, and the financing issues, and the legalities of Roe v. Wade, and so on. In the coming months, this is going to continue to be an issue. And there is legislation in the state of Kentucky, the state of Mr. McConnell's senatorship,
Yes, I've heard of him.
which is taking away.
I think he's heard of me, too.
I think everyone in this nation has heard of you.
Mr. McConnell has charge of what comes up on the Senate for debate.
Yes, he does.
In the early part of September, I believe, and I hope that, because my question rather stands on this point, the senator from New Jersey, Mr. Menendez, will not be present in the Senate because he has to attend to a trial for corruption. Is this something that you have a plan B for? Because you will need another vote if an issue of this kind comes up in the Senate at that time.
So I have to say, and you can probably tell from I never played poker, and there's a reason. The answer is no, I don't have a plan B, because actually I didn't know about this. And I hope that this isn't right. But you may be right on this.
My source is an article in the New York Times this week. I mean, that may be
really?
fake news,
Fake
of
news?
course. I have no idea.
So I'm sorry to say, Graham, I didn't see the piece, and I actually haven't talked to Leader Schumer since then to find out exactly what's happening. But I appreciate your raising it. I'm glad they raised it. So I just don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, okay? But at least I'm alert to it now. That is the good thing that happens from these. Are we through?
Yeah?
No. This is
No,
half the fun. And we have one more person back there who didn't get to ask his
Okay.
question. Is that okay, Corey? I'm just gonna, we had
okay
one
with
person
me.
who didn't get to ask.
Yep, right here. Thank you so much, Senator, for the
You bet.
opportunity to answer. Anyway, so I had another question, but given the nature of the opportunity, I have one thing to ask.
Okay.
My friend Felipe in the audience, he is part of this coalition called Sunrise. They fight global warming and any kind of climate change and disinformation.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And they have a question for you. Felipe, would you like to ask?
Felipe, you got a question? Oh, this is known as a lateral pass. Okay? They're hard to defend against when they're done well. Okay, go ahead, Felipe.
Hi, Senator.
I'm with you. Hi, Senate.
Appreciate it.
Hi.
So I'm Felipe. I'm 23 years old. I live in East Boston.
Uh-huh.
As you mentioned, I'm with a movement called Sunrise. We want to fight climate change and create millions of jobs in the process. I'm sure you would agree. We first want to thank you so much for being a champion for trying to get money out of politics, fighting corporate greed. And quite frankly, a lot of young people like myself are scared about the future that we're about to inherit. We're scared for our families, our communities, because of the effects of climate change.
Yep.
And so what we want to ask you is, will you take the no fossil fuel money pledge to refuse to take money from fossil fuel executives and stand on the sides of the families that you've always stood on the side of in the past?
I'm sure you laugh, Felipe, but they're not sending me any money.
So that's a yes?
Man, if they have, I sure don't know about it. So that one's pretty easy for me. You know, can I, though, take your point and stretch it out a little bit? And that is about climate change and about money. We're all worried about what's going to happen to this planet. But boy, watching the intersection of politics, money, and the future of this planet is truly terrifying right now. Remember the Koch brothers and their long history. Part of it starts, for any of you who remember it, with their father, the John Birch Society. But a big part of it is they make their money in carbon-based fuels. and have followed a very deliberate strategy to just throw up dust around the question of climate change, to say the science is debatable. And what's the point of saying the science is debatable? Because that gave cover so that politicians who were beholden to them could run under that cover and not vote for the kinds of changes that we need to be making. Could vote against support for the Environmental Protection Agency, for example. Could vote against cap and trade. Could vote against the kind of moves that could make a real difference and would have moved this country starting 2 decades ago in a much better direction. And every year that has gone by, this problem of money in politics on climate has gotten worse. The payments have gotten bigger, and the positions that the Republicans have taken has been even more extreme, even as the science keeps mounting. So when I talk about my fear that democracy is on the line, it's that I fear not just for our republic that we build, not just for the voice of the people to be heard in this country, but I fear for the very future of this planet. That a handful of billionaires and giant corporations have pursued a policy that can drive this country, this earth that we live on, to ruin, and that they have done it for the basest of reasons, just to take their already huge profits and make them even bigger. I go back to where I started, and it's a great place for us to end tonight. And that is to say, we're reaching a point in this country where it truly is on the line. All of it is on the line. Women's rights. They just keep coming after Planned Parenthood, and they do it at the federal level, and they do it at the state level, right? It's just over and over and over. They keep coming after us on the climate, just over and over and over. They come after unions, working people, the one voice out there that helped people get organized, that helped workers make sure that their voices could be heard in this economic system. They just keep coming after them. And we're scattered. We're dispersed. It's not where most of America wants to be. It's not where most of America wants to be on guns. It's not where most of America wants to be on health care, where they're trying to drive us. And so the fundamental question in front of us now is, what can we do? There are 48 Democrats in the United States Senate. That is not a majority. We do not have a blocking position. We do not have a blocking position in the House of Representatives. We do not have an election until 2018. We've got votes that are coming up that hang by a single thread. Our only chance is you. Our only chance is people who say, I'm going to make that commitment. I'm going to make that commitment personally. And every single day, I'm going to make a phone call, I'm going to do a post, I'm going to do whatever it is. I'm going to be part of my organization. I'm going to get organized, I'm going to get focused on what today's fight is. And the minute that we can pull it off on today's fight, I'm going to the next fight, and I'm going to the next fight, and I'm going to the next fight. And I'm doing it because I believe in what we can do in this country. I believe in the future we can build for our children. But I understand that it doesn't happen unless all of us get engaged in this. This is the moment. I ring the alarm bells for you. I am grateful that you are here tonight. I believe that we can do this, but I understand that it's going to take all of us putting in the energy. It's going to be frustrating sometimes, but that we're going to do this because we don't have any choice. Tonight, for me, matters. Being here with you both recharges me and reminds me what an honor it is to go down to Washington to fight on your behalf and to know, shoulder to shoulder, you and me, that's how we're going to win this fight for America. I believe this. I believe this. So thank you for being here. Thank you.